Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to this week's astrology weather report. And there's a lot going on in the astral sky this week. As you can see from the board here, we've got Mars having just moved into Taurus. The Sun moved into Pisces. I don't have a symbol for Chiron, but Chiron has just moved into Aries, which is very significant. It hasn't been therefore it's concluding for many people a 50-year cycle when it comes back to Aries. It's got a funny orbit. It takes 50 years to get back to its place of origin in the birth chart. So for those of us with Chiron in Aries, we're entering into that phase of our lives of having Chiron return, because it's now moved into the sign of Aries where it's going to stay for the next little while. We've got Mercury here conjunct with Neptune, and we've got Saturn having moved away from being conjunct with Venus having moved away from being conjunct with Saturn. So there's plenty of action, plus we've got a full moon occurring in the signs of Pisces and Virgo, so lots of energy this week. But don't ask me why, but I have been, shall we say, inspired, which is very much the nature of Uranus this week, to instead focus on this wonderful little planet here. Not so little, quite a big planet, quite influential in the chart. And I felt very inspired to look at what Uranus is doing at the final degrees of Aries. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what's up with Uranus. So my apologies if you're looking for me to talk about the full moon or the Sun in Pisces or Mercury conjunct Neptune or any of these other energies. I have felt guided, if you want to call it that, to speak about Uranus instead. Now, just for those of you who aren't aware, Uranus is a very influential planet because it pertains to the cycle of a lifetime, essentially. It takes 84 years to go around the horoscope. So it correlates with, you know, a general human lifetime, roughly 84 years. And it is one of my favorite planets. I like to talk about Uranus. I'm very Uranian myself, and it's certainly a planet that's very dear to my heart with its activity and what it gets up to in the sky. Pardon me, still got a lingering issue there. But so Uranus, let's have a look at what he rules. Uranus is eccentricity. He is uniqueness, creativity, quirkiness, genius. He is like the real left of center planet. And we can see that in the sky itself, in the astronomy, because Uranus spins on its side, which is different to the way the rest of the planets spin. They all spin around and around. Uranus goes like this on its side, and it actually spends half of its 84-year cycle with one side facing the Sun, and then as it comes around, the other side faces the Sun for the remaining 42 years of its cycle. So one side of Uranus is very cold and the other is getting all the direct energy from the Sun for a 42-year period at a time. Fascinating. So it's very erratic, it's very unusual, it does things in a different way, which is exactly the way Uranus plays out in our personal lives, as above, so below. So Uranus will be doing lots of, wherever it goes, lots of shaking up, lots of changing things around, lots of upheavals, and he actually rules things like volcanic activity. He rules earthquakes, things like that are about changing the way things are, altering things. I mean, and we see in that alone in the earth, like when there's a volcanic eruption, what does it create? New, in the case of Hawaii, new land masses over time, and earthquakes make the geography of the land change and shift and alter. So in the initial stages, like a Uranus transit, the initial stages are full of upheaval, like an earthquake, like a volcanic eruption. But then as we get used to the energy, or as things settle down, we adjust to the new way, the new status quo, the new way things are, like you would adjust to the new way that the earth is formed from a volcanic eruption or an earthquake. And then the ideal way to deal with Uranus is to adapt to the changes that he brings. Now, with Uranus, the purpose of his changes, the purpose of what he does is to create in us more authenticity, more truth, more being honest and integrous with who our soul longs to be. Now, that means essentially breaking free from the conditioning that we've had in usually our youth, or through our community environment, or the way we were brought up, or the social system, the culture that we grew up in. Uranus wants to break us free from any of those restrictions in order to sit in our truth. Truth is essential to Uranus. He doesn't tolerate any superficiality or pretense. So this is the nature of what Uranus does when he moves through a sign by transit. Now, I've recently been doing a series on the what is going to come for each sign when Uranus goes through the sign of Taurus for the next 7 years. But in this video, I want to share with you what he is doing at the final degrees of Aries. So whenever we have a planet at the final degrees of a sign, 29 degrees, we get the energy of boredom, frustration, disappointment, and sort of a sense of, I've just had enough of this energy. When is it going to change? When is it going to shift? Come on, this kind of a feeling, bored, disappointed, frustrated, lackluster, in relation to wherever that planet happens to be falling, or in relation to the nature of the planet itself, especially if we're looking at a personal planet like Mars or Venus or Mercury, one of those planets. So at this time, with Uranus at 29 degrees, we are all feeling a longing for the energy just to shift, to move, to change, to just get on with the show. Well, why don't you, hurry up and break free. We've had enough, because in truth, Uranus has been in the sign of Aries for 7 years. And so he actually spends 7 years in each and every sign throughout that 84-year cycle. So it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that you will have Uranus in whatever house Aries is for you in whole sign astrology, but it's a 7-year influence. And my God, 7 years is a long time to be refining, changing, breaking free, becoming authentic regarding the particular sign. In this case, it's Aries. It's a long haul. And so we're kind of at the end of that long haul. Uranus is giving his last hurrah, and we're like, just hurry up already. I've had enough. So we are longing for this energy shift. Uranus, wherever he goes, he's a roller coaster ride. He brings on-off energy, like a light switch. He actually rules electricity. So we get wherever he is at the time, the energy of on-off, 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 throughout that 7-year period. And there'll be highs like at a roller coaster, and lows when we're like screaming down the other side. Very Uranian. I haven't actually looked up to see whether Uranus rules roller coasters, but if I was the deciding astrologer, that would definitely be the case. So wherever he goes, he brings change. He wants change to happen, liberating change. But he brings excitement, and he brings energy that is unexpected. We can't, there's no solidness, there's no stability, there is no this is the status quo. With Uranus is quite the opposite energy. He is very polaric to Saturn. Saturn is very straight down the line, all about rules, all about hard work, all about endurance and the long haul. Uranus is like, exciting, change, mix it all up, and very highly activated type energy. So they're very, very different, and they're probably the best illustration of opposite energies. Saturn is also considered to be quite a polaric energy with the nature of Neptune as well, but for different reasons. So we get liberation from Uranus. We get authenticity, we get a lot of change, we get a lot of quick energy, we get a lot of excitement and upheaval that comes with Uranus. And if you don't happen to have Uranus particularly strong in your natal chart, then these Uranian transits, they're just like, oh my God, I've had enough. How do I handle this upheaval, this change, this roller coaster ride, or this yo-yo experience, It is really difficult for people who don't know or aren't familiar with a strong Uranian energy. Anybody who's got Uranus on an angle or conjunct with the sun or the moon will know what it feels like natally to have Uranus strong in the chart. So when we're at the final degrees of a sign with Uranus, we just want to get off the roller coaster. You know, we've had quite enough of this roller coaster ride, and we've gone pale, and our legs are shaky, and we're a bit dizzy, and it's like, enough with the roller coaster here, thank you very much. We want to catch our breath again. So on the 6th of March, not very far away at all, on the 6th of March, we are going to get off the roller coaster ride of Uranus in Aries. Doesn't mean the roller coaster ride ends, because then we'll be on a roller coaster in Taurus, but that will be a completely different area of life that is then going to be affected by the roller coaster of Uranus. So we say goodbye to a roller coaster in one area of our life, and we'll start to get on board the new roller coaster in a different realm of life. So this is going to be the big shift that we've all been looking forward to and longing for over these couple of weeks in February, when he's been winding up his energy in Aries. So the boredom that we've been experiencing happens because we are about to step up the ladder with Uranian energy. The more Uranus progresses through our chart, as we grow and, you know, get older and more mature and everything, the more we start to mature and be at one with Uranian energy in our lives. And that actually goes for the collective as well. Now, let me just talk a little bit about this. It's generally agreed by many people that we are now moving into the age of Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. So we are at a transition stage where we're waving goodbye to the age of Pisces, which has been in play for roughly 2,000 years since 1 AD. And so the hallmark of the age of Pisces, one of the things that really stood out about the age of Pisces, there's many things. I mean, you could talk for hours on the influence of the age of Pisces upon the collective consciousness and upon humanity in general. But one of the hallmarks was the idea that we as human beings, we need to suffer in order to be spiritual. We need to be martyrs. We need to be subservient. There's the connection, because Pisces is opposite Virgo, this connection of subservience and humbleness and so on. That's part of the hallmark of the age of Pisces, that we need to be martyrs, and we need to give to others no matter the cost to ourselves. Now, these are very much Piscean qualities. The idea of being a martyr, the idea of having to suffer, the idea of having to give of ourselves to the expense of ourselves for the sake of the other. I mean, Jesus was the avatar for the Piscean age, and I mean, the symbology there is that he sacrificed his life for the sake of everybody. And that's how the story of Jesus goes, and it's an appropriate avatar for the energy of the age of Pisces. I've got to say, this is, I'm very Piscean, and I've certainly in my youth, with the immaturity, I should call it, of the Piscean energy in my life, I found myself doing this a lot, denying myself. Yes, I'll suffer with this, I mean, little things. It wasn't like I was going to go and be thrown to the lions or anything, but the energy was such that, well, if it makes you happy and it makes your life good, then I will neglect what I need so that you can be happy. Hallmark of my ex-marriage, let me tell you. But that was because of my Piscean nature. Now we are moving into the age of Aquarius. So we're at this transition stage. It's going to take a couple of 100 years. So we're going to find that this idea of martyrdom, we'll call it, is going to fall away more and more and more, and Aquarian energy is going to increase. So this is also going to be the antidote. I mean, there's, like I said, going to be many influences that we see from moving into the Aquarian age. The rise of technology, the rise of computers are just a couple of examples. More divorces, people looking for more equality in the world, and the equality of men and women and different races and so on, and children to adults. Like, now we're becoming more equal, which is all the nature of Uranus and the nature of Aquarius. It's the antidote to this false belief of Pisces, where I have to make myself less so that you can raise up. That is going to be done away with, thank God. But in this age of Pisces, one of the things we're going to see is equality, like I said, more independence in people, you know, more sort of self-sufficiency and they're, you know, standing on their own 2 feet kind of stuff, uniqueness, quirkiness, originality, and genius. These things are going to be revealed instead. So at this transition point that we're in right now, whenever we see Uranus changing signs, it means another little step up the evolutionary ladder further towards this full embodiment of the age of Aquarius and the Uranian ideal. So we are now going through another little up the ladder towards more Aquarian, a more Aquarian age. Like I said, the transition is considered to take a couple of 100 years, so we're not there yet, but each change in signs is a little step forward for Uranus, personally and collectively. So this is an important, and this is probably why it's been on my heart actually, this is a very important change of signs, you know. Yes, we get changes of signs from the other planets, you know, some quite regularly, some even rarer than Uranus, but still very important. But the significance of Uranus cannot be underestimated because we are entering into an age that is ruled by this incredible, unique, quirky planet. So what does this then mean for us? That's talking collectively. What does it mean personally? Right now I'm going to go through the signs and we're going to look at what it's going to mean, pardon me, when we are dealing with this energy of boredom and frustration, and I've had enough kind of feeling about where Uranus has been for the last 7 years. Now I'm not going to talk about what Uranus is going to do in the new sign, Taurus, that it's moving into. I've got a series on that if you're interested, but what we're looking at is what energy we are feeling frustrated about, lackluster about, what energy is pretty much now going to settle down and stabilize for us when Uranus changes signs. So let's begin. We'll start with the first house, which is Aries, obviously. So Uranus, there we are. Uranus has been in the sign of Aries for 7 years. And so if you are Aries rising, this has been one of the most pivotal 7-year periods of your entire life. This is, in my opinion, the most life-changing transit that a person can go through. Uranus transiting your first house in whole sign astrology. There is nothing like it on the planet. Saturn transiting the first house, that's impactful. That will change your life. Pluto square, that's full on, you know, dark night of the soul, full on purging of rubbish in your life through that transit. It's full on too. But if anything is going to change who you are in this incarnation, it is the transit of Uranus to the first house. It will change your image. So you guys who are Aquarius rising, you've experienced this for the last 7 years. So you know all about it. It's fresh in your memory right now. It's changed your image probably. You might have, you know, gone from being brunette to platinum blonde, which is what I did when I had Uranus transit my first house. Your image could just like polarly opposite to what you usually are. There's a breaking free of taboos and boundaries and restrictions that have been on your life, even if you weren't consciously aware of them. You're probably looking back now and going, oh my God, thank God that all happened. I didn't even realize that I was in a state of entrapment within. Now there's a rebelliousness, a breaking free, a like, I don't care anymore, you know. Uranus in the first house is a change that comes from your own instigation. You will set in motion changes, you know, from yourself. You know, they're not going to be coming at you from outside sources. You're the one who's instigated changes. You're the one who may instigate divorce. That can happen when Uranus transits the first house. You're the one who's instigated the blonde Marilyn Monroe hair. You're the one who instigates a change in career. It comes from you, the first house, this change. Now there can be some ostracization that you've experienced with this transit, sudden starts, sudden endings in life, such as divorce and falling in love again, ending a career and starting something completely new. All this sort of stuff comes with the Uranus transit to the first house. Liberation from addictions can occur. It's the best transit to have if you need to quit smoking, quit drinking, quit drugs, whatever. If you're having Uranus transit, you'll never be the same again in that realm. Like I said, big sudden changes to key areas of life, changes to family as well. Now, what the result of this is currently with Uranus at the final degrees is that you've had enough. You are over this energy of massive, huge life change, like I'm sick and tired of, the woo with everything in my life. And for the last 7 years, it's probably felt like nothing has been stable for you. Nothing has been solid. Now, while Uranus is at the latter degrees, you're like, I just want to be more settled. I just want to feel like my home life, my love life, my family life, my career, I am a more settled person. And you might even start to be feeling a little bit bored with, you've changed your hair color 10 times in the last 7 years, or your hairstyles, or the style of your dress has completely altered over the last 10 years, and you're kind of like bored with all the change and you just want to settle down a bit. So this is the kind of energy you can be feeling right now with Uranus at the final degrees of Aries, if you are Aries rising. If you happen to be Pisces, we're going to go backwards this time, just because we're talking Uranus and we're being quirky, so we're going backwards. Uranus at the final degrees of Aries for Pisces rising makes it the second house. So this is the energy I've been dealing with for the last 7 years. Oh my God. Roller coaster ride. It just doesn't sum it up. Like, it's seriously, with regard to income, I have never known a period like this. One year I might be earning like mega bucks. The next year I'm unemployed for 18 months at a time. So it's just like with income, with possessions. You could have a stack of fabulous things at the beginning of this transit, and by the end you got nothing. And with roller coaster rides in between. There's the ability to make money through independent means, becoming your own source of income, of wealth, generating it from you, second house. And lots of lessons that come up with regard to no longer identifying yourself with your own possessions. No longer no longer saying, hey, I'm a rockabilly chick because I dress like this and I drive this car and I got this furniture. There's no more, this is who I am based on my possessions. You actually get a more spiritual approach to materialism with Uranus moving through the second house. So thumbs up for that. That's a good thing. But when you're at the final degrees, like I am right now, you have just had enough with never knowing where your money's coming from week to week. Are you going to be able to pay the bills? Is there going to be enough to survive? What do I need to sell now to make ends meet? Like, you have had enough with, in my case, the struggle to make it through each week. And you've alternatively had enough with the roller coaster ride of career change and income change and fluctuations regarding your possessions and your material wealth. You just like had a gutful, and you're quite ready to settle down, be stable and solid, and have a reliable income again. Very much the nature of Uranus at the final degrees for the second house. No more roller coasters, please. And so let's look next at the sign of Aquarius, which is going to put this energy in the third house for anyone who is Aquarius rising. So this is a time, if you are Aquarius and you've been experiencing this transit through the sign of Aries, it is your third house. And so it's been a time when you've been developing new skills, probably quite eccentric skills as well. Things really left of center, not just like learning how to write stories or anything. You will have been looking at the sexual stereotypes in in Gothic literature from the 1800s, or something really left of center kind of skills and interest. New ideas. The Uranus through the third house is about light bulb moments, massive intuition, tuning into higher realms and getting visionary, progressive thoughts that are just way ahead of their time. It can also mean a lot of upheaval, a lot of change, a lot of with your siblings as well, because the third house rules siblings, and Uranus is change and upheaval and those volcanic kind of energies. So there might have been a lot of tensions and frustrations with siblings through this transit. So when Uranus is at the final degrees of this sign, or your third house in this case, then the desire is for you to have some sense of normality with your siblings, to settle things down a bit with your relationship, with your family and your relatives in general, because the third house is not just siblings, it's actually also connected to cousins and uncles and aunts and so on. Our relatives are seen by the third house. So you want things to settle down with those relations and the people in your immediate environment, your neighbors, the people who are in your direct community. You just want to settle things down in that realm. There's also a desire, to really conclude this period well with a complete breaking free mentally from any restrictions, any conditioning around learning, conditioning around the way you communicate. You're finalizing and finishing up the energy of Uranus, which has taught you how to be authentic, original, unique, and even eccentric with your communications, with your writing, with your speaking, with anything to do with your mental processes and thought processes. So it's a time when you kind of had enough of all the crazy nature that's probably played out over the last 7 years, and you're just ready to settle down a bit with a bit more normality mentally as well. So the fourth house for Capricorn rising people, who've got a lot going on in their sign at the moment. So this is the fourth house energy. And when we've got Uranus at the final degrees of the fourth house, he's giving the last hurrah, the last bit of emphasis to some pretty heavy duty, serious areas of life. By square, he is aspecting the first house. By square, he's aspecting the seventh house. And by opposition, he's aspecting, for Capricorn rising people at the moment, the 10th house. And so there have been massive changes to all these important angular degrees. Massive, it might have brought divorce. This is a transit that can bring divorce. Home renovations. This is the house of home and your actual physical home, as well as family and heritage and roots and lineage. So there might be some physical home renovations that have taken place. Lots of moving around from place to place. Perhaps you might have moved 7 times in the last 7 years, or maybe more. With this Uranus in the fourth house, lots of changing homes. It can be changing towns, can be changing countries, depending on what's playing out in the rest of your chart. But certainly a lot of change in your residence and where you're actually living. And also in the community that you're part of. Like I said, it can also affect the country that you're living in as well. But your cultural experiences will have been really mixed up and changed up quite a bit. Now, when you have Uranus, and when you're Capricorn rising and Uranus is at the final degrees of Aries, it means that you've got this bored, if you like, or frustrated desire. You just had enough. Thank you very much, Uranus. I've had enough of the moving around, of never being settled, of my home life being up in the air. I just want a more settled, stable home life, family life, relationship with my children or with my ancestors. I just want it to be more steady and stable, because it's been so much of a yo-yo ride for the last 7 years. So you want some family stability, some family peace again. You also have a desire to finish the renovations. You might have had renos that have been going on for the whole 7-year period, an extension here, a bathroom reno there, and you're just like, enough with the renos. I just want to live in a house that doesn't have nails all over the floor and hammers and paintbrushes in the sink, and I just want stability and normality again in my home life. So we get this frustrated energy. Enough already. Thank you, Uranus. Do your last thing and then get on out of here. This is the nature of Uranus at 29 degrees Aries for Capricorn rising people. And now, Sagittarius rising people will see, it's always a bit wobbly at Sagittarius, is going to see, I'll hold it, it's going to see Uranus at the final degrees of Aries, which is the 5th house for anyone who is Sagittarius rising. So this period, this 7-year period for you guys has probably been one where you've had lots of romantic experiences that have maybe love affairs that have been on again, off again, they've come and they've gone, or you've had lots and lots of, you know, dating experiences, like heaps. Also, you know, it is a transit that can cause the conception of children, depending on what is playing out in your rest of your chart. If your rest of your chart is supportive and helpful towards that end, then you might have gotten pregnant during this transit. There's also, it's the house of creativity, self-expression, it's the house of the ego, and so you would likely have been more eccentric in your self-expression, more creative in your self-expression, much more individualistic in the way you've expressed yourself. There's been an attitude of, I don't care what, you know, the rest of the world thinks, I'm doing it my way, and there's probably been a good deal of appreciation for the way you've done it, and your uniqueness and your eccentricity with your self-expression at this time. But when Uranus is at the final degrees of Aries for Sagittarius rising people, it means that there's a final look at all these things. So it's probably been quite a positive experience. Uranus doesn't do too bad here. He brings a lot of pleasure, a lot of fun, a lot of joy. So it's probably been, generally speaking, a pretty good time for you guys. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes. So you may be experiencing a final burst of creativity and self-expression. It's not the final burst, but that really inspired burst of creativity might really hit home for you now. There's definitely a feeling of frustration with, you know what, I'm sick of going on dates. I've had enough, you know. I've been dating guys for 7 years. I've had a couple of short-term boyfriends for the last 7 years. I just want stability in my relational love life. I want a stable love arrangement. No more of this crazy kooky, you know, dating all the time. I've had enough. So there's this frustration with your love life. You want things to settle down. You want things to become more stable and solid. With Sagittarius rising, though, you know, this is probably less likely than for someone with a different rising sign, because they like a lot of adventure, they like a lot of change and diversity. So, you know, this is the general nature of Uranus being at the last degrees of the 5th house, but for you Sagittarius rising people, it's probably not quite as pronounced as for others with different rising signs. But yeah, a last burst of inspired creativity might really be present, and a desire perhaps for a more settled romantic life, or a more settled relationship with your children, especially if you're older. If you're, you know, say in your 50s or 60s and your children are older, you're probably like, you know, I've had enough of the volatility of dealing with my kids, and you just want, you know, I want to have a good relationship, a healthy relationship, a settled relationship with my teenagers now. And you really start craving that and desiring that, because it's probably been a period of a lot of upheaval. If you have children who are a little bit older, they will have been expressing themselves in very quirky ways, unusual ways, being very eccentric and very unusual. When you've got Uranus transiting the 5th house, and you're just like, where's my little girl gone? I want my young man back again, you know, enough with this quirky kid. So that can also be the energy of Uranus at the final degrees for Sagittarius rising. When you're Scorpio rising, this makes it the 6th house that all this energy is playing out in. And the 6th house, when you've got Uranus there, it kind of brought you some weight loss. It kind of brought you health issues and frustrations with health. There can be, you know, you might have had a really strange 7 years with regard to your own well-being, because this is the house of well-being. The 6th house rules our health. And connecting with alternative healers has probably been a good idea for you over the last 7 years. If you haven't done that, then you've got 2 weeks before it's out of there, maybe a bit less than 2 weeks, and this is your final chance to really get some alternative, because that's what Uranus rules, anything alternative, to get some alternative healing work done to address any health issues. There can have been marked changes to your relationships with your employees, or if you are an employee, with your fellow employees. You probably have had a real on again, off again time with regard to your fellow employees, or to the people that you do employ if you're a business owner. So things might have been full of upheaval in that realm for you for the last 7 years, and you've just like had enough now. You may have also had a lot of innovative work ideas as well if you're Scorpio rising. So you probably come up with some really clever solutions and really sort of out of the box approaches to whatever it is that you do for a living, you know, to pay the bills. So it's marked, this transit, it's one of the most difficult transits, Uranus in the 6th house, I've got to say. It's marked by severe roller coaster activity in the realm of work and relationships with subordinates and health. So you guys are really hanging out now. Scorpio rising people, you're like, I just want my health to be steady and stable. I'm sick and tired of always being in and out of the hospital or going to the doctors or whatever. I just want things to just be the way they used to be. You know, unfortunately, wherever Uranus goes, he changes things for good. We never go back to the person that we were before. But that doesn't mean we can't get our health back. It means that we can be more knowledgeable and wise about how to deal with our health problems, how to handle our health issues, and what treatments really work for us. You know, energy healing, acupuncture, naturopathy, whatever works. You will have discovered what your deal is this particular incarnation, what works for your body through this transit. But you are hanging out for some stability at work, you're hanging out for some solidness with your health, and you just want to have a break. You know, you're really at the end of the line, you know, feeling frustrated with this upheaval you've been experiencing in these realms, quite ready for things to settle down for you with regard to health and work if you're Scorpio rising. If you're Libra rising, well, hello, this has put Uranus in your 7th house for the last 7 years. This, oh golly, this is a doozy. Uranus in the 7th house obviously addresses 7th house issues and brings change, upheaval, roller coaster rides, all related to relationships. Now this can be committed marriages, it can be live-in boyfriends, it can be, or girlfriends, it can be business partnerships or collaborations that you do with business purposes. So you will have experienced being shaken out of a rut when Uranus moved into your 7th house 7 years ago. You will have been shaken out of a rut with regard to your relationships and partnerships, business or otherwise, in life. You will have had big changes over the last 7 years to your committed partnerships. Divorce can sometimes be a result of this transit, or more authenticity with your existing relationship, more truth, more integrity, more honesty in your marriage relationship. If you go into this particular 7th house transit with with a really healthy, solid, alive relationship, it probably will not be affected by divorce, and you will come out the other side having reinvigorated and recommitted your marriage relationship. If you enter into this 7-year transit with a really rubbish relationship that you're hanging on to by the skin of your teeth, not going to last, I'm afraid. Uranus will change things and make you more authentic and liberate you from what's not working in your life. So also this transit may have brought long distance relationships, on again, off again relationships, once more a bit like the 5th house. Involvement in eccentric culture can also be seen by this transit, and this is because this house is connected to, by nature, the sign of Libra. And Libra is about sophisticated and refined culture. Not, you know, hanging out at the local music festival with a beer in your hand and yeah, no worries. It's much more, let's go to the concert, let's go to the art gallery, let's be refined, you know, let's be, often the comparison is made between Taurus and Libra of, say, Taurus is the very Marilyn Monroe-like beauty and culture, which is very, you know, tangible, sensual and everything. Libra and the 7th house are more like Grace Kelly, refined, sophisticated, we view from a distance in admiration kind of energy. So you will have had a lot more cultural experiences with this transit as well that were perhaps more Uranian in style. Maybe you went to the planetarium a lot more. Maybe you attended science exhibitions or did things that with a very Uranian type theme, or got involved in some sort of computer cultural exhibition or light shows or whatever. So this is the nature of what's been going on for you guys. And now at the end of this transit, you are feeling like, enough, I just want a stable marriage or a stable love life, or I just want my own independence. You know, I'm sick of this upheaval, I'm sick of this change and yo-yo and roller coaster and volcanic activity with relationships. I just want it to be stable. Either I'm going to be by myself and things will settle down, or either I'm going to, you know, I want my marriage to start calming down again. You've had enough with this energy. You're done with it. In fact, you're probably a bit bored with the volatility. You know, it's been going on for 7 years and you're like, I just want normality again in these realms. Perhaps you might also feel a little bit of a desire for more traditional approaches to culture too. So, you know, instead of going to some massive computer generated light show type exhibition or something, you just want to go to the opera. I don't know, what are people interested in for refined cultural experiences? Unfortunately, I don't get to go to that sort of thing very much, but you're going to want something that's perhaps a bit more, a bit less left of center after during this couple of weeks when Uranus is causing you to feel like enough already with this energy. Hope that makes sense. Okay, the next sign, Virgo, puts this energy falling in. Yikes, the 8th house. Well, it's not as scary as it sounds, to be honest, because Uranus is very much at home in the 8th house. That's him. He's 8th house energy. He's 8th house and 11th house energy, actually. He's very comfortable because he's all about change and upheaval, which is what the 8th house is all about too. You may have had 7 years of experiencing, you know, sudden inheritances, receiving your superannuation, getting a will that's in your favor, or the opposite. You might have experienced 7 years of, you know, bankruptcy. You know, you started out here and you're down to bankruptcy, and then you get an inheritance, and then boom, you're down again. Uranus doing the roller coaster thing with regard to other people's money. It's a transit that can cause you to quit bad habits. So, you know, you might have had a good deal of benefit there as well. It brings about transformational life changes, obviously. So, you know, your life may, if you're Virgo rising, may have transformed just out of the box over the last 7 years. You know, you look back to 7 years ago and my God, who was that person? I don't even recognize the person that I was when I reflect on where I was at and what I was doing in life, and my worldview has changed so much. It's probably generated for you guys a big interest in Uranian things as well. I've heard a lot of astrologers say that over the past few years, many of their clients, in fact, the majority of their clients have been Virgonian women. Interesting. I don't know where the women aspect comes into it, but certainly I can see why there's been a rise in Virgo rising people interested in astrology readings, because Uranus has been in their 8th house. 8th house is connected to astrology, and so is Uranus, and has been generating this interest for Virgo rising people in Uranian things. And also things like electronics, things like inventions, progressive thought theories, science, anything to do with psychology as well, very 8th house. So you are sick of the roller coaster with these things when Uranus is at 29 degrees of Aries and your Virgo rising. You know, you've had enough of feeling like you've gone through the death and rebirth process. You've probably gone through it a number of times in the last 7 years if you're Virgo rising. Enough already. Enough upheaval and change and transformation, thank you very much. Enough with other people's money and not having stability there. You are ready to settle down and stop transforming for a while and let your financial situation sort of settle and the dust settle, and just sort of just sit with who you've become from this 7-year transit, you know. So it's not necessarily a feeling of boredom. It certainly hasn't been a boring time for you guys, but it's a feeling of, I've had enough. Really, let's call a halt to this. Let's just settle down. So you're quite ready to have a much more stable life. I mean, Aries is opposite, sorry, the 8th house is opposite the 2nd house, which is, they're polaric opposites. This is upheaval, this is stability, connected to Taurus. It's all about being solid, being steady, being, like Taurus is quite plodding and fixed. So these energies are very, very polarically opposite. And you're quite ready to go here now. Settle down, steady life, security, knowing where everything's coming from, knowing that everything's under control. You're just ready for that because you are absolutely fed up with the upheaval that's been created in the 8th house. So the next sign is Leo, and this is going to put the energy of Aries in the 9th house at 29 degrees. So this has brought you guys, for Leo rising, it's brought you guys maybe some separations from a father or father figures. It doesn't have to actually be your blood father, but any kind of inspirational figure, anyone that you've held up as a bit of a guru or somebody you look up to and respect. And so there might have been separations from people like that. You might even feel by now at the end of this transit like, I really don't have anyone I look up to and respect anymore. There's nobody I admire. I have no, you know, Dalai Lama or Mahatma Gandhi or someone like that that I just think is in my life. You know, there's nobody anymore. You might feel like you've lost that element of your life. There can be disruptions to education with this transit. Lots of, you know, I'll start this course, oh, I don't like it, start something else, oh, I don't like that either, or I can't finish that for financial reasons, or there might be some other inhibiting factor. So lots of roller coasters with education and also with travel. You might have found yourself scooting off to really exotic locations, you know, countries that are very, very unlike your own, with cultures, you know, really polarically opposite to your own with this transit. So you might have had opportunity to travel to those places, or lots of unexpected travel. Like, you know, say if you're in Australia and you're living in Tasmania, and then, you know, your mum in Cairns, she passes away, and you've got to, you know, travel to Cairns and spend a bit of time sorting out issues up there with family and so on. So I'm not saying that your mother dies, I'm just using that as an example of a reason you might have to travel. But yeah, unexpected travel to, you know, quite long distances away from where you actually live that kind of come up. And usually to quite unusual places as well, as is the nature of Uranus, anything quirky and unusual. So now you're just like, I'm ready for some stability with regard to my education. You know, I've been here, I've been there, I've been trying this and doing that, and now I just want to finish this law degree. Now it's time that I actually knuckled down and concluded that degree I started 7 years ago. Let's wind this up. There's this feeling of, I've had enough with not finalizing this, not finishing this. I've had enough with not being serious about, or not that you're not serious, but I've had enough with the upheaval regarding my education. I've had enough with the upheaval of having to travel all the time. Maybe you've had a job where, you know, you've had to travel, you know, 3 and 4 times a week to a city that's, you know, you have to fly to, and you're just like, oh, I'm so over all this traveling for work, fed up with that, enough for it, I'm changing jobs. You know, you might get that kind of energy as well, where you just feel like enough, we're cutting this off, I'm breaking free from all this upheaval regarding travel, regarding education, and perhaps that feeling of separation from figures of inspiration in your life. So for Cancer people, well, this places Aries in your 10th house, and so when Uranus is at the final degrees of the 10th house, it's bringing a lot of you know, wanting to stabilize things in that realm of life. So you've probably had experiences over this last 7 years with this transit of, you know, big career changes, maybe some quick rises to fame, and also quick dropping from social status as well that can occur when Uranus is in the 10th house. You might have also had the opportunity to be some sort of a revolutionary leader or authority figure in the world in a very unique eccentric kind of a way. You know, just you might have been a YouTube sensation, or you might have been an influencer for a while, very Uranian to rule the internet and internet-based social status. You know, you might have been on a reality TV program or something like that. So you could have had a quick rise to fame, but also a quick descent into obscurity again. And been somewhat of a leader, or a leader of social change, a leader of being like a progressive visionary type person who's ahead of their time. So this is what may have happened. Now, it doesn't have to be on the large scale where the whole world knows your name. It could just be in your local town. Maybe you were featured in the local newspaper about 12 times in the last 7 years, and everybody knows who you are now, you know. So it's not, you know, don't always think it's got to be bigger and larger than life, or bigger than Ben-Hur. It can happen at very localized levels as well. But now you're actually starting to hunger for a bit of stability with regard to your social status, because you've had these sudden upheavals and you just want to be, you know, either I've had enough with fame, I just want to, you know, go down the street and not be recognized anymore, or, you know, you feel like you want the leadership position, and you just want it to last. You know, you might have had leadership positions that came and went over the last 7 years, and you just want something that position of authority, or if Cancer is the matriarch, you might desire a matriarchal type position in the world, you know, the feminine leader or that sort of thing, and you just want it to last and endure because you're sick of the upheaval in that realm. There's a longing also with this for the quiet life, because this is the most visible house, the most social house. It's very focused on social status, and so when we're feeling the final degrees of Uranus at 29 degrees Aries, it's like, you know what, I just want this. I just want quiet. I just want peace. I just want my own time, my own space. I don't want to be in demand all the time. I don't want to be, you know, pushing at my career. I just want a break, you know. I just want peace, quiet, stability. So this can also happen. You might even have had enough with being in leadership roles and say, you know, enough already. So it's really the energy of saying I've had enough and I just want to settle down a little bit with regard to my social status. Gemini rising. Oh, I should also add, when you're Cancer rising, this has been opposing your 4th house. So there can have been some difficulties with 4th house issues, family, heritage, roots, lineage, mother, home. And by square to your ascendant, who you are, the way you survive in the world, and by square to the 7th house, there can have been an impact in relationships as well that you may have experienced with Uranus transiting the 10th house. So, you know, there might have been upheavals in relationships, instability in relationships, instability in yourself, maybe with your body and how you're presented to the world as well, and also with regard to your home. You might have moved around a lot or had a very unstable home life in some way. So in all those realms, if you're Cancer rising, you're probably well and truly ready for things to just quieten down a bit and be more stable in your life in those realms. If you're Gemini rising, this is putting Aries, stay there, okay, needs me to hold it again, puts Aries as the 11th house, and so the issues for the last 7 years has been a roller coaster Uranian ride with friendships and networks and groups of people. So there's probably been big changes to your earning capacity as well. The 11th house is connected to our earnings, the rewards for the effort that we put in. There's probably been big changes to your goals and dreams as well. You might have, I mean, if you look back to 7 years ago, what were your goals and dreams when you began this transit? They might be quite polarically opposite now, and you might have very different goals and dreams and aspirations. And like I said, your rewards and gains may have really changed a lot over the last 7 years, and you know, the rewards that you sought in the beginning are now not the rewards you are seeking from your life at this stage. There may have been sudden and unexpected rewards over the last 7 years. Maybe you got a promotion out of the blue, or maybe, I don't know, you received an Academy Award that you really didn't think you'd get, or some such thing. There can have been a lot of networking with very eccentric groups of people, so subcultures, people, you know, maybe you had to, you know, you immersed yourself in emo culture or something that's really was very unusual for you, or some sort of political activist group that, you know, you never ever imagined you'd get involved with. You know, I actually don't know what Louis Theroux's rising sign is, but this would certainly fit the bill for a lot of the documentaries he's produced over the last 7 years, getting involved in very unusual groups of people. I might have to look into that. He's just come to mind now, otherwise I would have looked it up before I did this video. But yes, lots of working with eccentric people, eccentric groups of people, left of center people, and politically active, you know, particularly unusual sort of subcultures as well. So you may have really had a lot of upheaval. The main thing is with friendships. So your friendship groups might have really changed. You know, you don't have the same friends that you started out with. You know, you've left some groups of people behind and moved beyond them even, or got involved in different interest groups that have really caused change to your friendship circles. So that's probably where you will have felt it more than any other. And so the longing here now, when Uranus is at the last degrees, is that I just want stable friendships. I just want to be part of a network or a community of people where I just belong, where I fit in. I'm tired of being, you know, with this placement, this transit, sorry, you can be the eccentric one in a group. And you're tired now of being the eccentric one. You're sick of this energy. You just want to fit in. You just want to belong. You just want to be part of the group, or to have more stable relationships with friends in general, where they don't leave, where they're not, you know, it doesn't, the dynamic of the friendship doesn't change suddenly. You just want more stable friendships, networks, and relationships with large groups of people. Okay, and the final influence is for Taurus people, who've probably for the first time had to wait till last for their reading. This, hang on a minute, moo. Yes, this puts Aries as the 12th house. Okay, I'll get it right. And so when we have Uranus transiting the 12th house, it's a period when, so for Taurus rising people, you've experienced this for the last 7 years, a desire to break free from any isolation or aloneness that might be present in your life. Past life memories can also arise during this transit. So you might have had a lot more activity in your dream life, and your sleeping might have been very erratic. Uranus brings erraticism to wherever it goes, and on again, off again energy. So there might have been some nights where you slept through, and there might have been other nights where you woke up 4 or 5 times because of the dreams you were having were so intense and so real and so electrifying, you know, the nature of Uranus. So lots of sleep disruptions with this transit. There can be a real desire throughout this 7-year transit to break free from any karmic loops. And when I say karmic loops, I mean the resonance that's with you from your past life experiences that you now carry in this lifetime, and also breaking free from any early life conditioning is desirable. So if you don't believe in past lives, then what we're looking at here is a breaking free from early childhood conditioning, if you're not a believer in past lives. So there's been probably a lot of upheaval in this area, maybe also upheaval and challenge and change regarding bed pleasures as well, which is ruled by the 12th house. So the sex life might have been quite erratic. You know, you may have enjoyed it more. It might have been frequent sometimes and then non-existent at other times. So it's probably been a bit of a roller coaster in that realm for you as well. So now you're actually longing for a good night's sleep. You're quite sick of having erratic sleeping patterns. That's another thing, you know, you might have had to be on night shift with a job for the last 7 years, and so your sleeping patterns are all over the shop. Sometimes you had to sleep in the day, sometimes you had to sleep at night. So now you're just at a stage where you're like, oh, I've had enough. I'm just sick of this energy. Let's settle down. Let's get more predictable, more stable, more secure with regard to my sleeping habits. And also with regard to your past. You might even start in these last couple of weeks of February to revisit your early childhood. Now that might mean you go back to a place where you're born or you grew up. It might also mean that you revisit through some sort of psychological or counseling practices any types of energy that have been playing out for you over the last 7 years, and you revisit them, or revisit childhood memories to allow emotions to come up and resurface and be dealt with and laid to rest. 12th house is the house of loss, and because it's also a karmic house, what Uranus wants to do with this transit is lose the karmic loops. So when I remember when I went through this particular transit about 14 years ago, it was a period for me of full on leaving behind my childhood conditioning, which was in a very religious culture, very small religious culture where we only hung out with people who went to our church. Very limited, very isolating, and very small worldview. And what happened when Uranus went into my 12th house is connected to spirituality too, I might add. So it suits this example. When Uranus went into my 12th house was the time I got married. And through that marriage, I shed that conditioning regarding religion, regarding how the world's meant to work, and almost culty-like kind of approaches to life. I was able to really let go of that conditioning, and it may have been karmic for all I know as well, that my conditioning was like that. And because of Uranus, was able to turn my worldview about spiritual things completely on its head, 180 degrees. So it is a profoundly life-changing transit. It also, for you Taurus rising people, you'll need to know this, it is a transit that leads into the transit of the first house, which actually ends up being a bit of a continuation of those 12th house themes, where this is ending certain associations and attitudes and karmic loops and childhood conditioning, etc. This sets you up for new belief systems and establishes sorry, I got through this far without hardly coughing at all. Bravo me. It's setting you up, Taurus rising, for establishing a new representation of yourself in the world, including your belief systems and your approach to how you will now be perceived in the world. But that's a whole other discussion entirely for Taurus rising people who are about to have their first house Uranian transit. Very powerful. So yes, there's the final dealing. You're probably sick of the sleep patterns. You're probably sick of the karmic issues that have kept coming up, and you're like, enough with that old spiritual belief system. Out the door with that. Now I'm embracing the new and more progressive Uranian idea, but there's still this frustration with the old habits, the old conditioning, the old attitudes and beliefs and so on with the 12th house. So that is really what I felt drawn to share with you through this this video this time. I know it's a little different to what I would usually do, but I hope it's brought you some enlightenment and some understanding of the energy that we're all dealing with right now. It's probably lessened a little today when I'm putting this video up, because Chiron has moved out of Pisces and into Aries. So it was at the final degrees of Pisces, and we were all feeling that sort of heaviness, that weight, that boredom, that frustration, that disappointment with the things that Chiron is representing in our chart. And so that's the energy of boredom, frustration, and so on has lessened a little because of that change, but we're still dealing with this massive big player, in fact the most influential planet in the chart, I feel, certainly in my life. It's not so for everybody. Like I said, I'm just highly Uranian. So it's a big player, and I really feel its energy wherever it's going. So you may have been feeling this heaviness, this weight, this like, come on, get with the program, let's move on here energy. And if you have, then I hope this has brought some enlightenment to what's happening, and the knowledge that on the 6th of March, yay, it's all going to change and we are going to leave it behind. Bring on the more settled financial situation for Pisces rising people. So if you don't mind, I'll close with a small prayer, and yeah, loving energy in the universe that brings us change and upheaval. I know it's for our highest good, and we thank you for the lessons we've learned over the last 7 years with Uranus, and we thank you for the insights and the wisdom and the knowledge and the up-leveling into our new spiritual paradigm that these transits of Uranus have brought to all of us. We look forward to the energy shift. We thank you that nothing ever stays the same, and that we can move forward into hopefully light and love and blessing and abundance in the 7 years to come. And so it is. Thanks for joining me for the Astro Weather Report. I look forward to catching up with you again next week.